Let me ask you a strange question. What is the most expensive liquid in your house? Is it your fancy perfume? Your best bottle of wine? Maybe some fine olive oil? It is none of those. The most expensive liquid in your home is almost certainly printer ink. This sounds like a joke, but it is not. Let's look at the real numbers. When you buy those little ink cartridges and you do the math, printer ink can cost thousands of dollars per gallon. Some studies put it as high as $10,000 a gallon. A few go even higher than that. Think about that for a moment. Gasoline for your car costs a few dollars a gallon. Milk costs a few dollars a gallon. Even expensive champagne is cheaper, drop for drop, than the ink you use to print your child's homework. We have all felt it. It is late at night. You need to print one thing. Maybe a boarding pass for a flight in the morning. You hit print, and the machine flashes a message. Ink low. It refuses. And you stand there, angry, at a machine you paid for, that will not do the one simple job you bought it for. So why is a tiny bit of colored water so expensive? And why does your printer seem to fight you at every turn? Why does it say empty when it is not? Why does it block the cheaper ink you try to buy? The answer is not an accident. It is one of the smartest and sneakiest traps in all of business. Your printer was never really sold to you. It was placed in your home like bait. And in this video, I am going to show you exactly how the trap works. Because your printer and the ink inside it was built to fail. Let's start with the printer itself. Have you ever noticed how cheap printers can be? You can walk into a store and buy one for less than the cost of a nice dinner. Sometimes they are almost free. That should be your very first clue that something strange is going on. Companies are not in business to lose money. So how can they sell you a whole machine, packed with gears and chips and motors, for so little? Here is the secret. They do not want to make money on the printer. Sometimes, they even sell the printer for less than it costs to make. They lose money on purpose. On that first sale. Why would they do that? Because they know something about you. Once that printer is sitting on your desk, you are hooked. You will need ink. And you will need it again and again for years and years. That is where they make their real money. Not on the machine. On the ink you have to keep feeding it. People call this the razor and blades trick. Sell the razor cheap. Then charge a fortune for the blades you can never stop buying. The printer is the razor. The ink is the blades. And business has never found a better trap. This trick is not new, by the way. It is over 100 years old. A man named King Gillette made it famous with his razors. He nearly gave the razor handles away because he knew you would come back, forever, to buy the blades. The printer companies simply took that old idea and made it far more powerful. Because a printer can do something a razor never could. A printer can think. A printer can watch you. And a printer can say no. And they start playing games from the very first day. You know that ink that comes inside a brand new printer? Those are often called setup cartridges. And here is the little trick. They are frequently only half full. Sometimes even less. So the printer you just unboxed is already, quietly, running low. Your very first trip to buy ink is coming sooner than you think. The countdown starts the moment you plug it in. So they need you to buy lots of ink, at high prices, forever. But there is a problem for them. What if you use the ink slowly? What if you find a cheaper brand? They had to stop that. So they got clever. And a little bit cruel. First, let's talk about the cartridge. That little plastic box of ink. It looks simple, but inside many of them is a tiny computer chip. Now, why on earth would a box of ink need a computer chip? It is not there to help you. That chip is there to watch you and to control you. The chip keeps account. And when it decides you have printed enough pages, it tells the printer the cartridge is empty. The printer stops. It flashes a warning at you. Time to buy more. But here is the dirty secret. Very often, that cartridge is not empty at all. Studies have found that many cartridges still hold a lot of ink when the printer calls them empty. Some still have 20, even 40% left inside. You paid for that ink, but you will never get to use it. You throw it in the bin, and you buy another one. The chip made sure of that. Some cartridges even have an expiration date hidden in that chip, a date after which the cartridge simply stops working, even if it is full, even if you never opened it. The ink is perfectly fine. The chip just said, time is up. Now, a smart person might think, fine, I will just buy cheaper ink from another company. And for a while, you could. Other companies made ink cartridges that worked just as well for a fraction of the price. The big printer makers hated this. It cut straight into their treasure. So one of the biggest of them, a company called HP, did something that made a lot of people very angry. Back in 2016, they added a system with a friendly-sounding name. They called it Dynamic Security. But do not let the nice name fool you. Here is what it really did. Your printer is connected to the internet, so HP could send it updates, quietly, in the background. And one of these updates carried a hidden order. From that moment on, the printer would check every cartridge for a secret HP chip. If it did not find one, it refused to print. Just like that. Think about what really happened here. People woke up one day, and their own printer, sitting on their own desk, suddenly stopped working with the ink they had bought. Ink that had worked perfectly the day before. The company had reached into a machine you owned and switched part of it off to force you to buy from them, and only them. People were furious, and they asked a very fair question. Is this even legal? HP tried to explain it away. The boss of the company even suggested that cheaper, non-HP cartridges could be dangerous. He hinted they might carry a computer virus, a bit of malware, that could harm your printer. But security experts looked at this claim and were not impressed. They called it weak. They called it speculative. In plain words, there was no real proof of it. To many people, it sounded like a scary bedtime story, invented to keep you buying the expensive ink. The anger turned into lawsuits. People took HP to court. They said it was simply unfair to block the cartridges they had every right to use. And after years of fighting, there was a settlement. It was finished in 2024 and approved by a judge in 2025. So what was the result? Owners of certain printers would now be allowed to say no thank you to those blocking updates. But here's the part that really stings. The customers who had been blocked for all those years got no money back. No real payout. The trap had worked for a long time, and the price of getting caught was tiny. And it is not just one company doing this. This is simply how the whole industry thinks. Take another common trick, used by brands like Epson. Deep inside many printers is a small pad. It is there to soak up a little waste ink during cleaning. A completely normal, harmless thing. But the printer counts how much ink it thinks that pad has soaked up. And when the count hits a certain number, the printer shuts itself down. It shows an error. It tells you it has reached the end of its service life. It acts completely, totally dead. But is the pad really full? Is the printer really broken? Usually no. The pad very often has plenty of room left. The machine is perfectly fine. It just hit a number in its memory and switched itself off. In fact, people have found free software that resets that counter. You run it, the number goes back to 0, and the dead printer springs right back to life. It was never broken. It was simply told to die. There is a famous story about this. In a documentary about how things are made to break, a man had a printer that had stopped, claiming it was at the end of its life. He was ready to throw it in the trash. Then he found a small program online, made by another frustrated person just like him. He ran it. The printer woke right back up, and it worked for years more. The whole death had been fake. A number in a chip. Nothing more than that. And now they have found an even bolder move. They want you to rent your ink. Some companies now offer ink by subscription. You pay them a small fee every single month. In return, they send you new ink when you start to run low. It sounds handy, but read the fine print, and it gets strange. With some of these plans, the ink in your printer is not really yours. It is tied to your monthly payment. So what happens if you stop paying? The ink you already have can simply stop working. The cartridge sitting inside your printer, with real ink still in it, can be switched off from far away. You are not buying ink anymore. You are renting the right to use it. Miss a payment, and your printer goes quiet, even though the ink is sitting right there. Let that sink in. They have found a way to charge you, forever, for a thing that is already sitting in your own home. Let's put some real numbers on all of this. Say you buy a printer for very little money. Over the next few years, you might spend 5, 10, even 20 times the price of that printer, just on ink to feed it. The machine was always the cheap part. You were always meant to bleed money slowly, drop by drop, for as long as you own it. So let's add it all up. Who wins here? The printer companies. They sell you the machine cheap. Then they trap you into buying the most expensive liquid in your home, over and over. They put chips in the ink to waste it. They ship you half-empty cartridges to start. They block the cheaper brands. They even build in dates and counters that switch things off. And now they want to rent you the ink you thought you owned. Every single trick points in one direction. More money, out of your pocket, and into theirs. And who loses? You do. You pay far too much for ink. You throw away cartridges that still have ink inside them. You throw away whole printers that are not even broken. And the planet loses too. Every year, the world throws out hundreds of millions of ink cartridges. Most are made of plastic that will sit in the ground for centuries. Add to that the piles of dead printers that only needed a simple reset. All of it by design. Now, you might be wondering something. If ink is really so simple, why go to all this trouble? Why the chips? Why the secret updates? Why the lawsuits? The answer is just how much money is at stake. Ink and toner are among the most profitable things these companies sell. Not the printers, the stuff you refill. So they guard it like a dragon guards its gold. That is why there is a quiet war going on that you never see. When another company learns to copy the chip, so their cheaper ink will work, the printer makers change the chip. Then they push a new secret update to block it. Then the other side catches up again. Round and round it goes. And you, the customer, are caught in the middle. One day your cheap ink works. The next day, after an update you never asked for, it does not. You did nothing wrong. The machine you own just turned against you overnight. And do not think this trick is only about liquid ink. Laser printers play the very same game with their toner. That toner has a chip too. It can also declare itself empty with plenty of powder left inside. The name on the box changes. The trap stays exactly the same. Now let's talk about the mountain of waste all of this creates. Every year, the world throws away hundreds of millions of ink cartridges. Lined up, they would circle the whole planet many times over. Most are made of a hard plastic that can take hundreds of years to break down. And a huge number are never recycled at all. They just go straight into the ground. And that is before you count the printers themselves. Millions of machines, tossed out every single year. Many of them not truly broken, just jammed, or out of date, or switched off by a counter hidden inside. A working machine, sent to the scrap heap, because fixing it felt like too much trouble. This is not just a trick on your wallet. It is a trick on the whole planet. And think about the small, everyday moments this steals from people. A student who cannot print an assignment the night before it is due. A parent trying to print a photo of their child, stopped by a message that says empty. A small business owner who has to halt work because the office printer decided, all on its own, that it was finished. These machines sit right at the center of our lives. And they are built to let us down at the worst possible moment. On purpose. But you are not helpless. Not anymore. Now that you can see the trap, you can step right around it. First, think twice about a very cheap printer. Remember the rule. A cheap machine usually means expensive ink. Look at the price of the ink before you ever buy the printer. That is where they plan to get you. Second, look at printers with refillable ink tanks. Some brands now sell printers where you just pour ink into a tank from a cheap bottle. No little chipped cartridges to fight with. The printer costs a bit more upfront, but the ink can be many times cheaper. Over a few years, you can save a small fortune. Third, if you mostly print plain black text, think about a laser printer. They use a fine powder, not liquid ink. And a single toner can last a very, very long time. Fourth, be careful with those automatic updates, and with those ink subscriptions. Now, thanks to the lawsuits, some printers let you turn off the updates that block cheaper ink. It is worth digging into your settings to check. And most of all, just remember the trick. When your printer says empty, you now know it might be lying to you. When it says it is broken, you now know it might just be switched off. That knowledge alone changes everything. So the next time you stand in a store, looking at a printer with a shockingly low price, you will see it for what it truly is. Not a bargain. A baited trap. A machine designed to make you pay, and pay, and pay. The printer was never really the product. You were. It is a hard thing to accept. You handed over your money for a helpful little tool. And that tool was quietly designed to keep on taking your money, for as long as you would let it. But the moment you understand that, the spell is broken. You stop seeing a friendly machine. You start seeing the trap for exactly what it is. And a trap you can see is a trap you can beat. This is just one machine in your home. And it is far from the only one built this way. On this channel, we open them up, one by one, and show you the tricks hiding inside. Because once you see how the trap is built, you can finally stop walking into it. So stick around. There is a whole lot more to uncover.